truth, logic, common sense, that gut feeling, and yes, even a little psychoanalysis, as we are once again together, you and I, to discuss Chad and Lori Daybell. Well, folks, you think it was God's plan for Chad and Lori to be sitting in jail cells right now? I mean, they're supposed to be the king and queen of the 144,000. I mean, since when does man's law override God's purpose, huh? Well, I'm a little facetious this evening, but I'm going to talk to y'all about today's news. I thought I'd put it off till tomorrow, but this whole situation has done nothing but leave a bad taste in my mouth. And I mean, when you look at that picture of Chad Daybell walking out of that courthouse on East Idaho News, shackled, and he's got that nasty ass chin of his, and he's walking down through there, and they're just kid gloving him to death. He's a damn serial killer, and he's getting all these damn rights left and right. And then we have a hearing yesterday for the queen there. Nobody knows shit. Nobody knows nothing about this woman and what's going to happen to her. And not anybody really knows what happened today. Basically, we're getting a little bit here and there. There was a couple of people in the courtroom along with law enforcement. But folks, when I posted on the community wall, was there going to be any movement? It just seems to me that all this time that we have been talking about them throwing each other under the bus, it's just one confirmation after another. And these two nasty ass, serial killer, crazy ass people have been getting one break after another, while the victims' families are still waiting to bury their loved ones. It's absolutely disgusting. And I'm in one of those moods tonight. And y'all are just going to have to excuse me. And for those that can't handle OKJ getting a little riled up, then you might want to just wait till the next vid. Was it God's plan that Chad and John Pryor and Lori and Archie, that they, are sitting here fighting everything tooth and nail, and the state's just acquiescing left and right? Oh, I know. They're saying, we don't have a problem with this or that. We don't have a problem with continuances. We don't have a problem with anything. Just keep them together, right? Well, it wasn't too long ago that the state was saying they wanted it far into 2023. Although they say that they're ready to go, just as Chad and John there, Mr. Damn Flask, Mr. Whiskey Man. Yeah, we're not ready, Your Honor, says John Pryor. We're not ready, but oh, by the way, sever the cases. And his reasoning for it aggravates the shit out of me. East Idaho News, Chad Daybell's defense will be diametrically, says John Pryor. He's using them big high-dollar words, diametrically, different from his wives, and their trials should be held separately, says John Pryor. Chad and Lori Daybell are charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder and blah, blah, blah. We've been hearing this shit for almost 3 years. They remind us constantly that these two people have murdered Tammy, murdered JJ, murdered Tylee, and now what really has got me upset is now John Pryor wants to bring in the murder of Charles Vallow as a way to get his damn his client off. I mean, Charles Vallow's murder is going to help John Pryor in his defense of Chad Daybell? Give me a break. Their death penalty cases are conjoined, but during a hearing with District Judge Stephen Boyce at Fremont County Courthouse on Thursday morning, John Pryor, Chad's attorney, argued they needed to be severed. Our version of the facts of this case will differ greatly from what Miss Vallow and her legal counsel are going to be presenting, Pryor said. Our defense is diametrically different than Miss Vallows, and the cases need to be separated. Well, I mean, the bottom line is this: ever since Chad and Lori got thrown in jail, John Pryor has been trying left and right to get this case severed. And now he's going to try it again. He's up to bat again. And folks, make no mistake, if it's going to happen, and just like I said in the last video, it's going to happen because of today's hearing, if it even does, okay? Wearing a white shirt and dark red tie, Chad sat silently next to Pryor for the long, hour-long hearing. Now, let's just stop there for a minute. Wasn't it the state that said, well, now that we don't have cameras or audio in the courtroom, then these damn criminals shouldn't get to wear street clothes, but Chad gets to walk out of that courthouse in his nice, fresh little white shirt and red tie? Give me a break. Boyce did not allow cameras in the courtroom. A few members of the public and several Rexburg police and Fremont County Sheriff detectives observed proceedings. The hearing was scheduled after Pryor filed a lengthy motion to sever in September, and we went over all that. We went over it. I mean, I'm not no professional or nothing. We went over it. It bothered me then. It bothers me now. The hearing was, there's a significant amount of information in this case, and the result could be the defendant is put to death. Given the severity of consequences, the courts and federal courts have made it a habit to sever capital cases, Pryor argued. And you know what? He's right. I mean, we're talking about the reason they're joined together. Y'all know it. We've been over this. I'm not beating a dead horse here. We're talking about conspiracy to commit murder. And I know there's precedent and there's other cases that can keep these two together, but he is right that 9 times out of 10, they'll separate the cases because it's such a serious thing being a capital case. Pryor mentioned that Chad has waived his right to a speedy trial while Lori has not. Her case is on hold until her mental competency can be determined. A hearing was held on that issue Wednesday afternoon, but it's unknown what occurred as proceedings were sealed. And why should Lori even worry about waiving her right to a speedy trial? She's too damn busy faking it like she does with her sex life. Her and Miss damn Queen Yoga Pant woman. How dare her fake all this? Now, I know she's got mental illness. Well, to me, it's mental illness and it's mixed up with this damn demon possession stuff. But the bottom line is this woman knows good and damn well what she's done. Lori also faces a conspiracy to commit murder charge in Arizona for the death of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. Pryor says he plans. This is what John Pryor plans on doing, y'all. He plans on using the information from that case in Arizona, just as I told y'all. I told y'all this a while back, and a lot of y'all agreed with this as well. That the case during they were going to use that case for defense arguments to help Chad Daybell. Again, John Pryor wants to file motions. He says he wants to get with the court and see about bringing in some of this evidence from a different jurisdiction. And it's my hope that if he does go down this road, which I think he's going to, he's showing his partial hand, that Judge Boyce is going to have to make a decision on whether it's relevant or not. Relevant or not to bring in something outside of Idaho's jurisdiction. Sandy Majors on the community wall said the plot thickens. Chad should have been charged in Arizona also, without question. Pryor may open the door for more than he bargains for on cross-examination. And that's a great point, Sandy Majors. But again, this comes down to what Judge Boyce would bring in from Arizona if he'd let anything in at all. Maybe Judge Boyce will say, no, we're not going to look at another jurisdiction. What we're going to do is, because Chad says he's not in a conspiracy with Lori, then none of that in Arizona matters, right? And we're just going to stick with the jurisdiction of Tammy, JJ, and Tylee in Idaho. And I hope Judge Boyce, if he has to make a decision, that's what he will do. Because I said way back when Arizona screwed up and didn't charge Chad Daybell, and we'll go into some of that here in a bit, when they didn't do that in Charles's murder or the attempt on Brandon's life, that was a get out of jail free shit for Chad Daybell. Because all Chad has to say is, see, Lori and Alex was doing all this stuff before they even came into Idaho. Of course, then, if that's the case and that's the way John Pryor wants to look at it, then Chad would have to convince jurors that Lori and Alex just lied to him the whole time about what had went on in Arizona. Chad would have to give an explanation for calling the funeral home for his queen. You know, remember when he called him and pretended to be Chad DeBall and asked him for pricing? He'd have to explain that he did know that Charles had been shot and killed, because it shows quite clearly that Lori's sending him a message. It isn't about, oh, Chad, Charles, he was trying to hurt me and Tylee, so Alex saved my life. No, it was, Chad, I'm only going to get $4,000. Folks, it is a disgrace what Arizona has done. I used to think this was good, because if Lori came up and said, well, Chad talked me into all of this, and I would have never done it, but I was so mentally ill and everything, and he took advantage of my vulnerability, that then it would go into, well, if Chad wasn't charged in Arizona, then you were doing this shit before you even damn really got into Idaho, Lori. So it does work in favor of the state when it comes to Lori, but it doesn't for Chad. It makes it look like Chad didn't have no conspiracy back when Charles was murdered and Brandon, the attempt on his life. Pamela Dimer says, go ahead, Chad is part of the conspiracy. We all know Chad was part of the conspiracy to murder Charles. We all know that Chad was in a conspiracy. I mean, for God's sake, goodness. He's on the phone with Alex before the attempt on Brandon's life and after, and they've got him on video surveillance at a storage unit. I mean, give me a break. I mean, he did just as much as any of the other ones did. I mean, in terms of conspiracy. What I'm trying to say is that Arizona, they're going to have to live with all of this. If John Pryor does, if he's able to get in this about Lori and Alex, because John Pryor obviously is going to say this was all Lori and Alex. And all you have to do, says John Pryor, is look back in Arizona where they started all this criminality. And oh, by the way, Judge, we want to get in all this other stuff too. Perhaps John Pryor might even try to get in the Joe Ryan stuff to show just how much of a tag team Lori and Alex was. Kavita Diva says, but doesn't that put Chin in a vulnerable place as being one who conspired with Lori? No, it does not, Kavita. If there are no charges against Chad, if the state of Arizona is coming out and saying we don't have enough evidence to charge him and get a likely conviction, then that in itself, you can't, just because there are circumstantial things out there that make it look like that. If the state of Arizona isn't going to charge him with anything, indict him for anything, then what is a jury member supposed to think? Sugar Magnolia says, I'm not too sure that is wise in terms of John Pryor wanting to bring in this evidence from Arizona of Lori and Alex's activities. It could open the door to many things. And again, I do believe that the judge is probably, limited at the most. I just don't see him bringing it in. But there's a possibility. Whether Chad and Lori's cases are severed or not, John Pryor's still going to ask for this. And then we get to this, you know how, I don't know how long it's been, but I told y'all, I said, it's just one thing after another with this case. They've got all these datelines, 48 hours, oxygens, books, things of that sort on this case. Well, guess what? Kobe's little Netflix deal might even help John Pryor as well. Think about that, y'all. John Pryor says there was a documentary done by Netflix that portrayed this case in a way I don't necessarily agree with. They talked about the allegations of what Miss Vallow was allegedly involved in down in Arizona, and I'm going to be petitioning the court to allow me to use a certain amount of information as it relates to Arizona. So John Pryor is making himself very clear. Not only is he calling Lori Vallow, which she should be Lori Cox, but he's also looking to this Netflix docuseries that Kobe did. And he says he doesn't agree with it, but hey, all he has to do is get the okay from Judge Boyce saying, okay, you can bring some of this evidence in. He might even be able to get clips of the Netflix docuseries to play for the jury. Wouldn't it be interesting? Wouldn't it be interesting if John Pryor got that? And he was able to say, here we go. We're going to do this clip here where Lori Vallow's mother's saying, yeah, she's probably going to spend the rest of her life in prison. Could y'all imagine that shit? Pryor also mentioned a concern about gender stereotyping in reference to evidence that shows that when it comes to capital cases, juries sentence men to death more than men more than they do women. And here comes the gender stuff that we talked about a while back. Of course, he's got to reach for whatever he can reach for. And so, it is what it is on that. Fremont County Prosecuting Attorney Lindsay Blake argued against the motion for severance and said Pryor had not met the heavy burden defendants bear to have a judge sever a case. Blake said severance is a last-ditch effort. It's meant to be used when no other remedy is available. And you know what? We're at that last-ditch effort, Lindsay Blake. And I know that y'all have done y'all's best to fight against this severance. But I'm just going to look y'all in the face right now. If there's ever a time that these two cases can be severed, it's now. And I'm going to predict now. I've been wrong. I'm going to predict it, y'all. Y'all ready? Chad's case is going to be severed from all this. You'll wait and see. Blake argued joint trials are preferred for multiple reasons, including minimizing the risk of inconsistent verdicts. Inconsistent verdicts? Well, if they were tried together, and she even goes on to say we could give them two juries, and there's inconsistent verdicts on conspiracy to commit murder, either way it goes. So that's a moot issue, because even if they're tried together, if they have two juries, or even if they have one, and one is convicted and the other one isn't, that's not going to, and I'm not saying completely, but there could be charges of conspiracy this or that. We're not talking about the murders themselves, like Chad being charged with the murder of Tammy. But what I'm saying is that it's really no difference whether they're tried together or separate on this whole concept of inconsistent verdicts, because it could still happen. But then she goes on to say efficiency using court, government, and witness resources. And they can prevent gamemanship. And to me, when I see when she uses the word gamemanship, one wants to beat out the other. I don't believe that's the term that I would use. It would be the antagonistic defense, which is very shocking that neither one has said anything about the antagonistic defense. They do say quite clearly, the state and John Pryor say they've heard Lori and Chad both have not confessed to anything. Why would they confess to anything? They're evil and diabolical. They're not going to confess with their mouth. They're going to go down and do whatever they got to do. Because you know what, folks? It's interesting. They plead not guilty. They're sitting in jail cells. And yet all the things they did together, they said God wanted them to do it. It was a divine thing. They were the king and queen. Oh, really? So that means that belief that they had all that time where they were working together to snuff out these lives and to do all this money fraud and all this other stuff. was God's will? Was it God's will? Was it God's will that both of them be arrested and charged in capital murder cases? Give me a break. Blake said the evidence and witnesses in the Daybell cases are similar, if not identical, and it only makes sense to keep them together. And we've been saying this for so long, and I've said many times that that's going to be a lot. It's going to be so much to take on 2 trials. But when you got Lori over here faking her ass off, and you got Chad who, basically Ada County's ready whenever they're ready, and he's already got his change of venue, it seems that they would go ahead and do this. You know what? I'm in the position now where I want to see something. And they need to make damn sure that they decide one way or the other and release those children's bodies. The defense attorneys, John Pryor and Archie, need to make up their damn mind whether they're going to bring some dumbass to come in there to say that the children's bodies are anything other than murder. Because that would be the only other reason that they would want to do more testing. This is set to be a 10-week trial, says Blake. We're talking about a severance that would result in a total of 20-week trials between the two. Okay, well, that makes sense, don't it? But then when she goes on to talk about we could get 2 juries in here, and this is going to be moved to Ada County anyway, the bottom line is let's get on with it. One way or the other. Let's try that damn double chin asshole. And let Lori sit back and see where she's going to end up once she stops faking it. Blake suggested one solution to potential problems could be having 2 juries in session during the joint trial, one for Lori and one for Chad. If witness or evidence issues were raised that did not apply to one defendant, then that particular jury could leave the courtroom. And an example of this would be Chad's insurance fraud, okay, where he collected that money on Tammy. Although I believe Lori conspired with him to murder her, the bottom line is she wasn't charged with insurance fraud. She was charged with Social Security fraud. So perhaps when they would present that to a jury, one jury would leave when it come to talking about Chad's insurance fraud, or make Chad's jury leave and leave Lori's there when talking about the Social Security fraud. So, I see that. But at the same time, we have no idea, y'all, what's going to happen to Lori, other than to say, because she has this private psychologist now saying she's not competent and all this stuff, that the state of Idaho, through statute, has to give her more time. Doesn't mean they have to put her back in the facility, but they have to give her more time. And by the way, for those that are interested, all you have to do is look at Letitia Staunch. They have insanity defense where she's at. But she's already been down this road, and they're going to go move forward with her, one way or the other. They are dragging their feet on this. The state is, and the defense attorneys are. They've had 2 damn years to prepare for this. Boyce asked if there had been confessions to the crimes from either Chad or Lori, and Blake and Pryor both said they were unaware of any. And of course, again, they're not going to confess. Chad and Lori are not. They're diametrically opposed to one another. We're fixing to find out just how different they really are, folks. The judge said he will consider the motion to sever and issue a written order at a later date. Both Chad and Lori have pleaded not guilty to all charges. A trial date has not been set. So, Lori wants to plead not guilty for collecting more Social Security payments, knowing good and damn well her kids were dead. And she's going to plead not guilty. Give me a break. Give me a break. So, if one thing is the exact opposite, now hear me out. Here we go. We're going to get into Chad and Lori. If one thing is the exact opposite of something else, they're diametrically opposed. Here, diametrically is used to mean totally or completely different. And you know what? When I could not For a moment, when I saw that reasoning from John Pryor, I couldn't believe that dumbass would even go there, knowing exactly the evidence that even we know. They've got more. Diametrically is an unusual word. It's only used to modify the adjective opposed. So when John Pryor, unless he's just a dumbass, like I said, and he used that word, that high dollar word diametrically, you only use it when you're doing what? You're doing it to say I oppose. So what he's saying is his client is opposed to Lori, right? Well, I'll tell you what, John Pryor, why don't you make up some divorce papers, huh? Why isn't Chad getting a divorce, huh? Oh, they're so different, aren't they? We're fixing to go into all that. Let me give you an example. Is your brother or a friend or anyone a cheerful, optimistic person, while your other friend or your sister is a cranky, gloomy person? Then they're diametrically opposed. This word comes from diameter, a line through a circle. Now listen up. You'll learn something just as I have. A line through a circle in the sense that 2 points at either end of a diameter are directly opposite of one another. And John Pryor wants to sit in that motion hearing today and tell the judge that they are so different on their defenses. The only thing that could even squeeze out in my mind that they're different is that Lori wants to hold on to her fat chin husband, and that Chad is absolutely saying it's her and Alex. Because this is just some examples. And I hope you'll put in the comments things that you know are exactly the same in this case of Lori and Chad. Number one, they both wanted to be together. Okay, there is no doubt at all. John Pryor cannot have a defense that Chad was running away from that damn Yogo prostitute, that damn 2x4 wearing black hole woman, that hussy. Chad was on her like fly to shit, okay? And she was on him fly to shit. They did everything together. So John Pryor can use that term all he wants, that they were the opposite, that he's using that they have opposite defenses, but he has to deal with the fact, empirical evidence, that Chad and Lori wanted to be together. And with that said, they both were having an adulterous affair. It's clear as crystal. There ain't no damn way that John Pryor is going to be able to prove that Chad never stuck his damn chin in Lori. There ain't no way. And there's no way that anyone can come away from that thinking that Lori just made it all up, or that Chad just made up his smutty novel, that he never went to her house the weekend Charles wasn't there, and all of the things that happened. Everything that Melanie Gibbs said. No telling what Zulema, Melanie P, so they could get their asses out of trouble. Again, they both wanted to be together. They both had an adulterous affair together. And of course, before they ended up, getting busted, basically, they did what God wanted them to do. They ended up getting married. They got married. If there was anything, okay, now stop. If there was anything that was even in question, and you think about the knowledge that Chad Daybell had the day before November the 5th of 2019, when they were married in Hawaii, he would have to give a reason for why those kids are not around. He would have to give a reason that he knew all about Charles. He'd have to give a reason, because there's evidence that he knew all about it. He called the funeral home. He'd have to give reasons for all that and say that he thought that was just totally innocent. He didn't think there was nothing going wrong. Because the bottom line is this: what juror is going to look at Chad Daybell and John Pryor saying that Chad had no idea that any of this stuff was going on beforehand? And the bottom line is even if Chad gave Lori the benefit of the doubt, the moment he was on that beach with the damn ukulele, jumping up and down on the Hawaiian beach there, marrying his queen. He thought all was right in the world, didn't he? Didn't he? So there is nothing that Chad could say before getting married to her now that he can say, I knew something was wrong, or, at the time I knew something was wrong, but I just couldn't put my thumb on it. Well, if he knew something was wrong, what in the hell's he doing marrying her? And where the hell are the kids, Chad Daybell? Did Lori and Alex tell you they were off in some bunker somewhere, but they just magically end up in your backyard at the same time that you're sending your wife, the one you murdered, a text message? John Pryor says the defenses are going to be so different. They're just going to be so different. Well, John Pryor needs to explain they both were endorsing and espousing their cult life beliefs to anyone and everyone that they felt they could trust or suck in and get their money or whatever. I mean, there are cult members on the witness list that will be at this trial. There'll be Melanie Gibb. There'll be David Warwick. There'll be possibly Melanie P. Zulema. There'll be other people that will be the ones that will say, Chad and Lori were telling us they were starting this thing, the Church of the Firstborn. So that was something as well. And that is important because in the indictment, it says they endorse and espouse religious beliefs for the purpose of murder. Well, we know good and damn well that they did endorse and espouse the same exact shit, okay? They both of them, Chad and Lori both, recruited people for their Church of the Firstborn. Whether it was these in-home meetings where Chad was talking about polygamy, or at the conferences, or Melanie Gibbs' house where Lori's talking about being, the warrior. I'm the warrior of the millennia. I'm on equal footing with men. And some juror is going to believe that Chad had no idea, when Chad is absolutely doing the same exact shit as Lori's doing. You see what I'm saying? They both lied about the same things. I mean, they both lied about the same exact things pretty much in terms of when they got together, when the murdering started. They both were in league with Alex. They both were. This whole idea that Alex was Lori's protector and all that. Well, there's evidence out there that Alex and Chad were buddies. Alex spent time out at Chad's other times other than the times of JJ and Tylee being deposited out there. He was out there the day of the welfare check. Alex was out there with Chad. They hung out. They were buddies. They were talking on the phone. They were texting. They were doing all these things together. They were brother-in-laws. So, although Lori and Alex were brother and sister and had more history together, at the time that all this shit went on and the conspiracy to murder, Chad was just the same as Lori. Chad was doing blessings for Alex. Chad was making sure that Alex did these things as well. There is no way that Alex would have just done this on his own without Lori and Chad's okay or whatever. And another thing that is not diametrically opposed is the fact that Lori and Chad both murdered their spouses. Lori murdered Charles. She was still married to him. She didn't get the money. But Chad got a little luckier. He murdered his wife at the time and got the insurance money from that. And we know that Arizona does have that conspiracy to commit murder on Lori for Charles's murder. What I don't understand is why they don't add another charge there of insurance fraud. Well, at least attempted insurance fraud. She didn't get the money, but she sure as hell, she called them. She called them and asked, I'm the beneficiary. Well, no, you're not, lady. And not only that, it shows the text messages. It shows, Melanie Gibb was talking about how Lori was talking about the insurance and all this and that. They both ran off to Hawaii after the welfare check. Of course, you got Melanie P. I'd never do nothing to ever turn against my Aunt Lori. I'd rather go to prison. And I did an interview and I said it was a planned move. It was not a planned move. Maybe down the road that's where they were heading. But I guarantee you there ain't no coincidence about it. There ain't no coincidence about it that this was around Thanksgiving. Why isn't Melanie P? Why ain't she asking, well, Lori, are you going to have a turkey for JJ and Tyler? We're going to have Thanksgiving at Janice's? Give me a break. They both did podcasts together and attended prepper conferences together. This whole damn thing about Melanie P. and Ian saying she don't know. She didn't know what she believed in. She told the FBI agent, I've just listened to so much of this crap. And everybody confirms, from Zach Cox to others, said Lori just changed when she got her new set of friends. And guess who was at the top of the friendship, the BFF there? Chad Daybell. There was nothing different at all about what was going on here. Conspiracy to commit murder, they were down the road with it all the way. They both had 7 missions to accomplish together. And they both could tell light from dark spirits. And they both fought those zombies. Chad, I went in the closet like you told me to. And I got rid of 30,000 over there in Texas. That's 30,000 less zombies. We prayed them away. We did all these castings with you, Chad, to get rid of the zombies. But that just wasn't good enough. Let's start murdering people. They both could tell if someone was dark or light. They both, according to Chad and according to Lori, believing, had been married in different lives. They can come out today and say they really didn't believe it or whatever, but the evidence is there. They both believed they had been married in a different life. And I don't mean like earnestly believe. Chad was thinking with his Johnson, and Lori just wanted to believe it. Both of them had to know deep down. Because the bottom line is this, y'all. If they'd been married in a different life and they were the king and queen, what the hell? What the hell are they doing in a jail cell if this is God's will? Has Lori seen Jesus face to face sitting in the jail cell these days? I don't know. What do y'all think? How about Chad? Can he see beyond the veil now, sitting in the jail cell, like that's going to do him a damn bit of good? They both, Lori and Chad both, they know why they rode the kids' bicycles and scooters into the storage unit. And their belongings, their winter clothes and the blankets and the photo albums. They're on video doing it together. And they're also on video together dropping a tire and a seat off while Chad is grabbing him some ass. Oh, they're so different, don't you know? And Chad wasn't indicted in Arizona for Charles or Brandon. What does this say? Why did Arizona do this? Why couldn't Arizona do the right thing? Maricopa County can kiss my country ass. They've dropped the ball on everything. Chad Dave, I'm going to say this right now. I am just telling you. There is just as much evidence of Chad Daybell's involvement on the murder of Charles Vallow than it is Lori. Just because Lori was Charles's wife and was going to inherit, or she thought was going to get his life insurance, well, that didn't stay singular with Lori when you got a text message with her talking about, I'm not going to get the money, and Chad calling the funeral home. They were interwoven all the way. They were absolutely lined up together for conspiracy to commit murder. So that is why Lindsay Blake says there's the same witnesses and the same evidence, almost identical. This is why the case should be held together. But if there is an argument to sever it, the argument is these are death penalty cases. And I just think that, this is just my view, and y'all can have a different view. Y'all know for a long time I said I wanted them both at the table. They wanted to do all this shit. They need to go down together. But the bottom line is at this point, the most important thing is, first and foremost, we need to keep Cresha and her family in our prayers. We need to continue to pray for Jason. We need to pray that the children's bodies will be released. And then if these cases are severed, so be it. Whatever happens to Chad will eventually happen to Lori. She can't run forever. She just can't. You know, I look here on the indictment of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree from Maricopa County, Arizona there for Lori. And when it talks about Lori Vallow on or about July 11th of 2019 with the intent to promote or aid the commission of offense, to wit, first-degree murder, agreed with Alexander Cox that at least one of them or another would engage in conduct constituting the offense of first-degree murder on Charles Vallow. The state further alleges that the offense charged in this count is a dangerous felony because the offense involved the discharge, use, or threatening exhibition of a gun, a deadly weapon or dangerous instrument, and or the intentional or knowing infliction of serious physical injury upon Charles Vallow. What's the sad reality of it is they should have put in that indictment that Chad Daybell also should have been a co-defendant in that case. Because no, Chad was not there, but Chad was directing it. Just as the pattern shows, he directed everything else. Does that mean that Lori was under Chad's spell and she was vulnerable and she just really believed him and she really didn't mean nothing by any of this? No, because throughout there's empirical evidence that Lori felt like she was on even Steven. She was on an even playing field with Chad Daybell. She was on evil ground with her king. She wanted to be equal with men. She got to be equal. Chad wouldn't have never treated her any different way. He didn't want the supply of what she was giving him between her legs to go away. He was that whooped. And that's just the way it is. But when I look back and I think about, we've discussed it, that if only Arizona could have stepped up and done the right thing in terms of adding Chad Daybell to this, we wouldn't have this issue now where John Pryor is saying we're going to at least petition the court. I honestly don't think the judge will allow it in jurisdictionally, but you never know. You just never know. But I think back, it says Lori sent Chad Daybell a message July 18th of 2019. 1 week after Charles was murdered, she indicated the following. So I talked to the insurance company. He changed it in March, so it was probably Ned before we got rid of him. They can't tell me to who, of course, but it's done. I'm still going to get the $4,000 a month from Social Security. Why would she have to talk to Chad about her finances? Why would she have to tell him how much she's getting monthly now? Because Chad was counting on that money. That's what Chad was counting on. And Lori was counting on it too. I'm sure she made out like she was so much better off than she really was. And she knew she was nothing without Charles. And in order to really have something to keep up that apparatus on, that whole deal, her facade there, that she was something, because you can't be a lowercase g without having something. And Chad didn't have nothing either. He was going to have to off his wife. Of course, he wanted to go ahead and maybe he could do it through Brandon. I don't really think his heart was in it until Lori really started making all this stuff in her text messages saying, Chad, go be with your family. It's okay. Maybe things will be different down the road. That basically equaled, if you don't get rid of that woman, you're never going to get this between my legs again. That's what it was all about. That's really what it came down to. And Chad acquiesced, just as the state is acquiescing right now with continuances and all this other stuff. I'm not happy with the state right now. But the judge is going to make a decision. And it's my prediction, and like I said, I could be wrong, that he is going to sever the case. And I think that Chad will probably be tried in March or April of this year. That's just an opinion. I could be wrong. I really thought because the judge has held this together as long as he has, this has really nothing to do with Lori and this crap she's faking. This has to do with now John Pryor really does have an argument. This is a capital case. This is death penalty here. And although Lindsay Blake does say we could have true juries, or we should keep them together because of the efficiency and the same this and the same that, Judge Boyce is going to consider it, and I think he's going to do it. Lori would not have known this about any of the money she would get monthly, the $4,000 a month that she was telling Chad. She wouldn't have known without completing the online benefit evaluation. Furthermore, the Social Security Administration did not have any contact with Lori until she attended an appointment with them on 8/12 of 2019. This appointment date was located in Lori's iCloud account. It was at this time that Lori was provided with the actual amount of the benefit, which was close to the $4,000 she reported to Chad in July. And I think it's interesting. She reported that. She reported it to Chad. If everything that they started to do together, it really came down to, I really think things picked up steam. And it seemed more doable because Alex was around. Plus, they brought in these other women where they was having these castings and stuff. They thought it was going to go off. It was going to come up off the ground. They thought things were going to get better and better. Lori thought she was going to get the money. She didn't get it. Then they tried to get it from Brandon through Melanie P. And then, as soon as Chad was able to cash in on Tabby's life insurance, they hightailed it out there. And this whole idea of diametrically opposed, the only thing that they're opposing now is their responsibility and what they did together. They didn't have a problem. They didn't have a problem being together when they were having sex. They didn't have a problem being together when they were espousing all this bullshit, puffing themselves up, making people think they were something that they wasn't. Chad lying about NDEs and beyond the veil crap. Pendulum swinging, energy work, Julie Rowe podcast crap. They were on it together, every bit of it. And John Pryor wants to say they are diametrically opposed now. Well, that just says to me that his defense is going to be that Lori and Alex did all this and that Chad didn't have a clue. But see, John Pryor's not really thinking it through. He's just not. He's not thinking about everything that even we know. There's probably even more out there. For two people that are diametrically opposed to one another, where Chad is getting a phone call from Lori while he's sitting in his truck, where those children's bodies were being dug up out of his backyard, and the conversation that they had together, they were together. They said, I love you. I love you too. Call me if you can. Yeah. If this guy wants anybody sitting on a jury to think he was that gullible, he's got another thing coming. Him and her, I honestly believe they were both, even Steven. Nobody was the puppet master, other than to say Lori and Chad together was Alex's puppet master. Alex did the heavy lifting. Alex isn't here to defend himself. He's probably burning in hell. I don't know that for sure. I hope he is, because he murdered these people for nothing. For nothing. Innocent life for nothing. His niece, his nephew, and Chad's wife, and Charles Vallow. And would have gotten away with murdering Joe Ryan. We don't know for sure what happened on that. But I can tell you this right now. Alex was the only one with the energy or the desire or the evilness to actually physically do these things. because Chad and Lori are cowards. They barked the orders. They're the ones that wanted someone else to do it. They didn't want to do it themselves, except to say Chad had to off his wife, and we're going to find out through the autopsy on that. Do you think Lori was diametrically opposed to Chad murdering his wife? No, she was egging it on as he was saying, Viola, she's Viola, and Julie Rose knocking on the door. I give it 1 week. 1 week, and we're going to find out whether Judge Boyce is going to sever these cases or not. Please put in the comments the things that you find that are the same or similar in the evidence that we know of Chad and Lori. And if some of y'all want to put in the differences, that's good as well. I'm become so cynical about all this. It's aggravating, but I'm not giving up. Again, I'm trying to get back on track. I'm trying to get back to 3 a week on my pre-records. It's been kind of hard to do. But I miss all of y'all when we're not on lives together. But I love you all. Keep praying for Kresha and her family. And just leave your comments. Those are what's most important to me. Don't give up on me, and I won't give up on you. We're supposed to be in this together to get justice through understanding. I told y'all a while back, things are shifting a little bit. Things are a little different. But I'm still counting on you. I love you all, every one of the Rays on here. So keep on looking.